Welcome to Mommispace, the podcast for moms of all stages. My name is Kaye, and this podcast was created to give moms a voice to share their experiences and to share that there is not just one way to be a mom. This is a place where you can learn to love the woman inside the mother. Hello, welcome to Mommispace. I'm Kaye, and today I'm joined by Brittany. The series we are currently in is called Babies versus Daddies. I'm a pretty new mom, so I'm getting to venture through balancing marriage and mom life. And I know this is a balancing act for all of us, so I wanted to hear from other moms too. So Brittany, thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be doing this with you today.
Yeah, this is going to be so fun. So I wanted to start out with, who the heck are you and what's your deal? And take it at that.
Okay, yeah. Well, I am a 30-year-old mom and wife. I've been married for about a little over 8 years, and I homeschool my girls. I'm very blessed and fortunate to be able to stay home and homeschool my girls. I have 2 little girls, and they're 2.5 and 4.5. So that takes up majority of my time. I'm kind of like a crafty person. I enjoy things like painting and drawing and things like that. But my focus most days is take care of my little ones and homeschooling them. And I love to be able to share that journey on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, so I'm very passionate about sharing young childhood educational tips and tricks and things like that.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I watch your stuff all the time, and I really love seeing your girls because they're the cutest and they really love learning, and it's so sweet.
Thank you. Well, they love learning for the most part, but they're only 2.5 and 4.5. So there's definitely days where they just want to run around and not listen to a thing I say, but I don't always show that on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm sure that's not great, like, footage to be showing everyone.
Right.
So about our like babies versus daddies conversation. So like I'm a really new mom. My son is almost 5 months old, and we're just like basically in the thick of learning how to be married but also be parents and how to juggle all those things. So I'm wondering, what was your transition from being just a wife to being a mommy and a wife? Do you feel like it was smooth, or was it a mess?
It was definitely difficult for me. It was not smooth at all. We planned our pregnancy, our children, and everything. They were all planned, but I definitely was not prepared for the major change. I always tell every soon-to-be mom, like, the biggest change is going from 0 to 1 child. That's the biggest change. After you add on more kids, it's just kind of like, oh, you just throw them into the mix and just keep on going. But adding 1 child in was very difficult to find a balance between being a mom and being a wife and also taking care of myself. So it wasn't super easy. The first year was the hardest. After that, we kind of got more into a groove.
Yeah. Do you feel like you did anything intentionally to set your marriage up for that transition? Since you said you were planning on having kids, did you guys kind of think like, oh, maybe marriage will be hard? Or were you kind of like, oh, yay, we're having a baby?
No, we didn't have like a set plan. Like, okay, when we have the kid, like, this is how it's going to be, and this is how, every decision is going to be made. We weren't really like, we didn't go about it the way, like, I read books, and I got I read some blogs and things like that. But one thing that really helped us out in the beginning was being on the same page with everything. So before we made any major decisions about like parenting or parenting tactics and methods, we would have a conversation and be like, okay, should we do it this way? These are the different outcomes if we did it this way or if we did it that way. So we had just a ton of conversations when it got really hard. Also, making sure that not just one single person was constantly burnt out. So we were always on the same page and a good team, but making sure that one person wasn't totally burnt out, like giving each other breaks, basically. So that kind of helped set us up for not being too overwhelmed in the early stages of parenthood, even though it was still very overwhelming.
Yeah.
But
No,
when
that's
you have someone who can understand and like read you and knows when you're like touched out and ready to just cry,
Yeah.
than having a good teammate. Like I always tell people, if you feel like your partner is like your teammate, then you're good.
Yeah, no, that's a really good piece of just being on the same page. Because I think, like, I know people where as they parent, they're like, yeah, we don't agree on anything. And I can't imagine how
Yeah.
difficult that would be. Do you guys feel like you agreed ahead of time on what your roles were as mom and dad and husband and wife? Like going into that, did you see eye to eye on those traditional roles? Or did you have more of a modern approach? Or I don't know, what does that look like for you guys?
So I think that being a wife and a mom are both extremely important roles. However, I think that having a strong marital relationship will only help you become better parents. So I think putting that forward and making your relationship stronger should be a priority. And then you'll like the roles of parenthood will kind of fall into place a little bit
Mhm.
easier.
Yeah, so I know for me, I always hear people talking about how you should put your children above everything, like they're your number one priority. And most people think
Yeah.
like your marriage takes a back burner when you have kids. Do you feel like it's that, or do you feel like you're actually supposed to keep prioritizing your marriage?
I think that you should. I mean, this might be a little bit of a controversial topic between some moms. I know I agree. A lot of people feel very strongly about one way or the other. For me and our relationship and our family, I feel like our marriage should come first,
Yeah.
and making sure we're both strong in ourselves as individuals and in our marriage is going to set us up for more successful parenting, and then our children will see how a strong marriage should look for later in life
Yeah.
when they want to get married.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think a lot of times the misconception is that if your marriage is coming first, that means you just neglect your children. But it's not like your
No,
husband's not an adult child. Like you both know how to like when your kids are freaking out, it's not a good time to like have a nice conversation. Like
exactly. Yes, it's about prioritizing like each situation in the day too. But like obviously, we're not just going to be hanging out, having a coffee, and talking when the kids are losing their minds.
yeah, exactly. Or I've heard people share the example of they knew a person who she always said, like, my husband comes first. So she would literally like serve her husband his plate first while her like toddlers were like screaming. And I'm like, I don't think that's like marriage isn't all about who gets to eat first, right?
Right, right. No, we're not that level of like putting each other above the children.
Yeah.
We're more just like our marriage comes first. Our marriage needs to be strong. So when we start seeing like it maybe not being as strong as it could, we need to focus on that more so than deciding some new activity we're going to do with the kids.
hmm Yeah, no, I think you put that into words really well.
Thank you.
Where do you feel like you struggle to balance like the wife and mom thing the most?
I think a lot of times I let getting like everything done with the kids first like totally drain me by the end of the day, and then I like at the end of the day when the kids are off to bed, then we're trying to catch up on like us time. A lot of times other projects start falling into place where okay, I need to get lessons done with the kids, I need to focus on chores, uh, do laundry, get all this laundry folded and put away, clean the kitchen, and then by that time it's the middle of the night nearly, and we're both exhausted and we don't have any quality time left together. So I
hmm
think that's one of the biggest things that I struggle with, and I'm always struggling with that. It's not
Yeah.
like it's just popped up like ever since becoming a mom. I mean, it's only been 4.5 years, but it's just a constant battle for me. So I'm always trying to keep it conscious in my mind, and but it's a tough one.
Yeah, no, there's never enough time in the day. And all of a sudden, I remember being bored before I had a baby, honestly. I was like, I don't have anything to do all day. And now I'm like, I don't have time to do
I don't
anything
remember
all
what
day.
that's like. It's been so long. I don't remember what it's like to be bored.
And now I'm like, no, I always have something to do, which I actually craved when I didn't have a baby yet. I was like, I want a routine. I want a schedule. Like, I want to have something to do every day. And I got it. I got what I wanted.
There you go. Yep, you'll be busy for the rest of your life.
I know, right? Is there anything specifically that you can say you've learned in the tension between motherhood and being a wife?
I think that giving myself a little bit of grace in uh, when it comes to, I mean, it's very difficult to go easy on yourself when you are constantly feeling like you're falling short every day. So I try not to focus on it and really beat myself up in my mind
Mm.
and think, okay, you know what? I'm doing the best that I can. I am a good mom and I am a good wife. And just because, we had pizza for dinner again doesn't mean I'm not, Miss Susie homemaker. I am who I am, and sometimes you need breaks, and if that means, skipping out on a home cooked meal every once in a while, that's not that big of a deal. Little things like that. So just giving myself grace, I think, um, is key to the tension between motherhood and
Yeah.
being a wife.
So you are like very present in YouTube and social media. And do you ever feel like you struggle with like the comparison game, just seeing moms like around you
Yes,
doing everything?
yes, I definitely do. And every once in a while, I notice myself catching, uh, I notice myself getting caught in seeing what other moms are doing, constantly having cute activities to do with their kids. Their little meals are perfectly proportioned with proper nutrition, and
Mm-hmm.
their relationship looks so happy, like they probably never bicker about anything. And it really makes you start thinking about yourself in a negative way.
Yeah.
But I have started kind of focusing more on being like looking at this as a highlight reel. Like social media is not everybody's entire life. It's just what they feel was good that day. They want to
Mm-hmm.
share with other people, because that's what I do on my Instagram and on
Yeah.
my YouTube. I don't show my kids having a meltdown because, well, for one, it happens a lot, but nobody wants to, like, when you're older, when think about when my kids are older, they're not going to be happy if I showed them throwing a fit over
Yeah.
something small for the whole world to see. So I don't show stuff like that. I only show the happy, the positive. But so I understand that that's really all social media is about. You're not going to see all the nitty gritty of everybody's life out there. It kind of, thinking that way keeps me in balance.
Yeah, no, that's good. I know before my son was born, my husband and I had to actually have a conversation about social media boundaries involving our kids because we live in a time where the decisions you make are irreversible. And so we had to talk about like, I don't want to ever humiliate him, even if it's like as a parent, it's funny at the time, or it's like, oh, people will relate. Like they have to witness
Mm-hmm.
that I was basically using them to get attention or to get like sympathy from people and putting
Right.
stuff out there that is I never had to deal with that. If my mom had social media when I was a kid, she would have posted everything.
Yeah, right. Same. My mom probably would have too. If you saw the photo albums that she shows everyone, that would have been all over Instagram.
Right? Right after my son was born, I had a C-section, an emergency C-section. And like after surgery, you're like super swollen. She posted like 100 pictures in the first 2 days, and I'm just like swollen
Oh.
in the hospital. And people were like, "You probably didn't want your mom to post that." And I'm like, "No, not really, but I guess we'll just go with it." So those are there if anyone
Oh,
wants to find them.
right. All right. I'm gonna go search you out now and find those pictures.
I look so good. But yeah, it's like I think it's so important and not really talked about enough that like especially like complaining about being a mom. Like it would break my heart
Right.
if my son saw like that I hated being around him and dealing with him when he was
Right.
difficult. Because I love him like
Mm-hmm.
when he's frustrating and when he's like calm because that's
Right.
who he is. And you're like I'm not always pleasant to be around and I hope people want to be around me even when I'm going through something hard or being emotional. And yeah, I just don't think people talk about that enough. It's so important.
Yeah, I agree. I think that a lot of times people get caught up in social media, and sometimes they can share too much of their lives, but that's up to the person to do. But um, everybody makes their own decisions. But when it comes to your kids with really young, they don't really understand, so they don't really get as much of a say.
Mhm.
So that's why I try to only show little bits and pieces. But yeah, it isn't talked about enough. Maybe it should be talked about a little bit more.
Yeah, I guess we're pioneering the way. So I'm just wondering, can you share a time that you feel like you kind of failed at balancing the two? I know you kind of touched on a couple pieces, but has there been just a moment where you're like, wow, I really goofed that up that we can learn from?
Yes, this is something that I feel like I mess up on. I mean, not all the time, but the most. It's not just one scenario, and that is when my husband gets home from work, like at the end of the day, and I've just been like totally touched out. I've been overwhelmed and dealing with resolving tantrums and making meals all day. And he gets home from work, and I'm not always the most pleasant when he does get home. And I'm not always greeting him with a joyful smile and a lot of affection. And, he's had a long day at work as well. Not saying that, I should put on a fake smile, but
Mhm.
I often let the day take over my emotions instead of trying to start fresh and new and actually think, wow, I really have this my husband. I can't wait to spend some time with him. So I
Yeah.
think that is kind of where I mess up the most, where I just let the day take over me and I don't get to really show him that I am glad that he's home. And it's probably not the most exciting thing to come home to a wife who's
Yeah.
grumpy and irritable.
Yeah. No, I'm always, and this is probably coming from an unhealthy place, but I feel like Hollywood has painted such a picture of how being parents is like the worst thing ever. And like husbands hate coming home. And I've always been so afraid of that being my reality someday. Like, what if my husband like hates coming home to me? Um,
Oh,
like, right? Because I
no,
don't,
I
I
think
don't
that
blame him. Like, if I'm just yelling at you and kids are screaming, like that would be stressful.
right, yeah, it's never the most exciting time of the day to come home to chaos.
Yeah.
But I think the older the kids get and the more children you have, things can be a lot more chaotic towards the end of the day when you know the kids are tired and cranky and they haven't had dinner yet and they're touched out too, but they don't know how to handle it as well.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think it it's kind of overplayed in the media how it's like, oh, I hate going home to my wife who's always grumpy and my
Yeah.
kids who are screaming constantly. But um, I I noticed myself actually having that come true. So
Yeah.
that's one area where I feel like I'm trying to be conscious of and do my best to be more go with the flow kind of
Yeah.
mom and what.
Yeah. I think that's the key is just being aware. Self-awareness is so important. And then just trying.
Yeah.
Like we can't
Yeah.
seek perfection because that's not going to happen, but we can try
Yeah.
and then try again and then try again. Right.
That's right. Yes. Intention.
Yeah. Do you feel that you have any convictions as a mom or as a wife that are unique to you in your marriage and your motherhood?
Let's see. I don't know about specifically unique to me. I guess something that I would say is a conviction as me as a mom would be that I'm always trying to teach my kids like with real life experience. Like
Yeah.
I talk to them like they're a regular real adult. I mean, in obviously in terms that they can understand, but I don't
Mhm.
sugarcoat a lot of things. That way they can understand and learn about what's going on in my day. I mean, they do laundry with me. I like to teach them, how to cook, even though they're very little, but just have them around and learn real life experience. That way, when they're older, it won't be like shock to be, oh,
Mhm.
how does my dishwasher work? How do I write a check? I never saw my mom, you know, do this, and
Yeah.
they'll be able to kind of understand how life works.
Yeah, no, my sister-in-law had to teach my husband how to do laundry when he was like in his 20s. Like he had
Oh
no
no.
idea. She had to come over and show him how to do it. He knows how to do laundry now though.
Yeah. And then I guess a conviction as a mom or as a wife, I'm sorry, a conviction as a wife would maybe be that I'm a very supportive wife. I know that a lot of wives are supportive of their husbands, but my husband, he has a lot of ideas that are just he's full of ideas. He's an analyst and he's very data oriented.
Mm-hmm.
So he's constantly coming to me with some new idea and do you think this sounds crazy? You should really go for this. And I'm always like, do you believe in it? Then you should go for it. And I support you. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of a conviction I have as a wife as well.
Yeah, no, that's so good because it's so easy to fall into a place where you're just critical of your husband and again, not being someone who's pleasant to be around because you're just getting comfortable and you're like, I don't know. I feel like I get there where I'm just like, I'm not really fun to be around, so I should probably check myself. That may or may not have happened today.
Oh, I feel you.
What advice would you give to a new mom regarding marriage?
Advice I would give to a new mom would be to focus on going on dates with your spouse. Prioritize that specific alone time from the get-go. Like have someone who you trust with your baby from the get-go. And this is something I kind of regret not doing sooner when I first became a mom because I was so protective of my daughter that I would only ever let my parents or my husband's family watch the baby, and they weren't around much. They were over an hour away, and so it was very difficult for us to have a date night. But prioritize that because you're going to get very distant from each other and realize that the baby is the only thing that is the focus. But focus on your marriage and that alone time with each other, and just make that a priority.
Yeah, no, that's so good is just making time for one another. And it is hard to just let somebody hold your baby and be alone with them when you go away. You're like, no, I'm just gonna stay here.
Yes, it is difficult, but I started out when I had my second daughter. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna make sure that I'm comfortable leaving her for at least a couple hours every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed my husband and I's relationship was so much stronger from the beginning after having a second baby. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So something I'm curious about is did you ever feel uh like there was this weird gosh, I'm trying to think of the way to describe it. The disconnect with your husband because you realize like you don't know how to parent our kids like I know how to parent my kids. Especially the
Um,
baby stage when like he's basically useless.
yeah. Yeah, no, it was definitely strange because we had totally different roles when it came to the baby in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Like I breastfed her, so I was her main nutrition source.
Mm-hmm.
And he was kind of like the baby rocker and the soother.
Yeah.
So it was different. Like we just had different roles. We parented different in the beginning, but yeah, we just kind of had different roles when it came to parenthood
Yeah.
until she got older, and then things kind of started being uniform between us.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think it's good too that you made sure he had a role. I think going into it, my husband and I were just kind of like, your role is to just wait until he's older. And he does like my husband changes almost all the diapers because I think he's like, I can do that for sure. And we just got done sleep training our babe and he goes to sleep like super easy. So now there's so
Oh,
much more
good.
like sharing now where I'm only like food where before I was like everything. And so I feel like now there's not as much of that divide where you're like, you can't do anything.
Yeah, no, it's so good to have a balance. I'm so happy to hear that that's like working out for you guys too. Having
Yeah.
a balance like that is awesome. It starts to make both of you feel a little bit more useful, but also like you have a little bit of your individual like that.
Yeah, no, and we didn't go into it setting up like, this is your role, this is my role. We kind of were just like, oh, we're going to parent together. And then realizing like with a baby, it's not that easy. You have to actually divvy out tasks. And my husband works in the
Right.
morning. And maybe some people, I mean, if you both work in the morning, yeah, it's okay if you both don't get sleep because it's even. But I get to work from home and stay at home a lot. So I end up like, I'm like, okay, I can lose sleep and it's not the end of the world. But if you do, it is.
Right.
So it just gets kind of tricky when you're like, okay, I'll stay up at night. And then I keep talking about this. There's this weird rage when you get woken up at night that I didn't know existed. And so your brain's not fully awake and you're just like, I'm angry for no reason.
Yes. Yes, I totally understand.
So I'm like glad that my husband's still asleep because I'm like, I'd probably just get in a fight just because I'm irrationally mad right now. Okay, that's my rant. I just bring it up every time I'm talking about sleep. I'm just like, and the anger, where did that come from?
Yes, no, I totally get it. And baby sleep is one of the most difficult things that is like when you get to like that 4-month-old mark, it's
Mhm.
just like, okay, what am I doing? Because I'm doing something wrong. Like, someone
Yeah.
please help.
Oh my gosh. And he was such a good sleeper. And then everything changed. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I thought everyone was lying. I was like, it's not going to be that bad. It was bad. So is there like anything you anticipated with being a mom that just did not end up being the case, or you were planning on doing the cute Pinterest meals and that just didn't happen, or anything like that where you just had unmet expectations?
So there's definitely something that sticks out in my mind from the beginning of parenthood. I thought that switching between breastfeeding and bottle feeding whenever it was convenient would be so easy, and my daughter would not take a bottle no matter what. She was exclusively breastfed and would not take any milk from any other cup for probably a good 6 months, which left me unable to leave her for more than a couple hours. And so
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be so easy. And it definitely was not. It gave me so much anxiety and stress about leaving her and her not taking from a bottle. I bought probably like 10 to 20 bottles and nipples, just hoping she would take one.
Yeah.
And she would not try any. She hated them all.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that, I was not expecting that. I thought it would be easier. And some parents, they say it's so easy to switch, like from bottle to breast and back and forth whenever they find it convenient, or if they want the dad to be able to give them a bottle and have that feeding experience sometimes, but not the case for me.
Yeah, my son did pretty well. We introduced a bottle really early because I think I was like stressed out. Like breastfeeding, period, stresses me out. And maybe this will
Right?
be my anthem is I freaking hate it. But because I'm blessed to be able to do it, I'm gonna keep going. But I just hate it, especially at first, because I wasn't anticipating how hard it was gonna be to have to like
Yeah.
be completely in charge of all of their nutrition. Like they'll die if I leave or something.
Right. That's a lot of pressure to have on one person.
Yeah. I had like, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna breastfeed. It's gonna be fine. And then like all the pressure comes to you and you're like, I'm stuck here for the foreseeable future.
Right? Yes. I totally understand. And I I love breastfeeding my daughters, but I felt like I would get stuck. Like my first daughter, she would breastfeed for 45 minutes at a time. She was not like a quick, like business only kind of feeder. She would
Yeah.
like, she used me as a pacifier. She would just like kind
Mhm.
of fall asleep. And I'm like, okay, I'm just stuck. Like I need a snack.
I'm just here, I guess.
Right?
So what resources would you say helped you the most? Maybe like community group or something online, or just what do you feel like helped you the most through just motherhood, and still to this day what's helping you?
I think the most help I have found has been through YouTube and podcasts, actually, because I was the first person in my friend group and the first person within like my cousins to have a baby. So I didn't have that person to like go to and ask who's already been through it. So I kind of turned to YouTube, and I would, go on there and search certain scenarios that I was struggling with and find like real mom experiences.
Hmm.
And I felt like that was huge in making me feel a little bit more comfortable about being a new parent. And still to this day, I still do the same thing. For instance, I can remember my first daughter, excuse me, my first daughter, I can remember she was very colicky and I did not know what to do. The gripe water wasn't helping with her. So I found this video about how to do a tummy massage on a baby to relieve gas. And it was like night and day. So YouTube, online resources, podcasts, you find so many useful things there.
Yeah, I think I've watched days worth of YouTube about babies.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm doing my makeup watching YouTube. I'm like doing everything just watching videos. And the night I decided to sleep train, I could do it because I had watched this like 45-minute video about it just in case. And I was like, I already know what to do.
Now you're the professional on baby
Yeah.
sleep training, right?
Yeah, now I'm a consultant, I guess. Um, so that's like a good resource. I think YouTube and podcasts, because YouTube is so easy to just search like whatever you're looking for. I feel like
Right.
it's so user friendly. Everyone has access to use YouTube. Again, you can do it while you're nursing for 45 minutes, or like I watched so much
Yeah.
YouTube while I was nursing in the beginning. But yeah, it just goes along with mom life, I think, so well. I'm constantly watching YouTube. Like at this point, I kind of have a problem. I can't live my life unless some noise is playing in the background where I feel like I'm learning.
Right.
um, and then I guess to round this out, would you just share
Okay.
a funny story that shows just how much your husband is not a mom?
Oh, oh yes. I would love to. So, you mentioned that you just sleep trained your baby recently. Well, I sleep trained my daughter, my very first daughter, when she was about 6 months old. And so we had her in our room up until then. And she would sleep like in our bed or right next to us in a bassinet. So we were very like attached at the hip. So once we transitioned her into her room, I had a baby monitor on by my side of the bed all night long. So I hear every little move that she made. Well, she would still wake up once or twice a night to breastfeed, which was normal. So I was on high alert, you know?
Mhm.
Well, but I would wait about 2 minutes when she first woke up to see if she was going to soothe herself back to sleep or if she really did need something. So she'd be crying in her bed for a good 2 minutes before I would get up to go to her. And my husband would not move a muscle at all. Like he's laying right next to me. He is not that far from the baby monitor. He would not move a muscle. I don't know how he turned his ears off. And then morning, he would be like, wow, Layla really slept all night. She never woke up once. And I'm like, really? No, she was crying quite a bit. But yeah, so I feel like moms, they're on high alert even when they're sleeping. Like they're paying attention to everything, even when they're never fully unconscious. I feel like as
Correct.
moms, we're always paying attention to something. So that that is something that I still talk to my husband about. I'm like, how do you sleep through it? How do you sleep through everything when I'm like, I can hear them through the walls, like
Yeah.
sniffle.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I so relate. That's us too. There was like one night I was listening, right? Like seeing if he would just soothe himself. And my husband wakes up like after maybe 15 minutes of trying to get him to like put himself back to sleep because I knew he wasn't ready to nurse yet. And he's like, "Hey, can't you hear our baby crying?" And I'm like, "He's been crying for like 15 minutes. I'm awake. I'm just waiting." And he was like, "Oh." And I'm like, "I can't believe you're questioning me."
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh my gosh. Baby sleep is the real deal, I tell you.
Oh, yes.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoyed getting to hear a lot of your perspective because I think each mom really has something to share about their unique situation. So just thank you so much for joining.
No, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation so much.
Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to check out all of the goodness from today's episode on the show notes and share with a friend if it impacted you in any way. You can also leave a review on iTunes so that other mamas can join the movement of loving the woman inside the mother. Join our online Mommispace community every day by following us on Instagram at Mommispace, so you can interact with me and other mamas, be encouraged, and give your valuable input on how to make this beautiful community even more safe and inspiring for mamas all over the world. All my love to you, mama. You are enough.